Well, good evening, friends. It's Mary Ann Goldweber from A Village Personal and Spiritual Development Center. I'm a professional medium and spiritual teacher, and I'm coming to you live tonight for my video podcast. And tonight's topic is going to be God moments. You know, there's a lot going on in our world, and the universe is actually hard at work behind the scenes trying to help us all out down here. And there's a lot going on right now. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about these God moments, or how the universe lets us know that they're working for us. So grab your cuppa and your notebook, and let's have a lively conversation about that. Boy, I could write a book on God moments, to be honest with you. So I got my beverage, and I've got my all my little tools and things here. So let's see what the universe has to say. I'm also going to do some mini readings. So let me know if you're open to that as we work through the podcast. We're going to do it real brief, tonight. So anyway, so I want to start with a few days ago on May 4th. The universe, the universal celestial beings, which govern and guide a lot of things here on this planet, one of them went retrograde, and that's Pluto. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that to start, because this is going to have a big bearing on us over the next 6 months. And so it's a really awesome time to use the energy of these planetary influences to help us gain clarity in our human reality. So make sure you write this stuff down. I wrote a big post about it today, about who Pluto is and what kind of astrological aspect that particular planet brings us. And now that it's retrograde, it's forcing a lot of things into the light. So anyway, hey Sue, how you doing, friend? So I always stop and wait a second for everybody to get on before I start, but I really wanted to start the evening by talking about Pluto. Mercury, that's our other favorite. So the next 6 months, it's going to be retrograde from May 4th until the mid-October. Okay, so this is, whether people know it or not, these planetary influences do have an effect on us humans down here. And that's what I want to kind of clear up, because it's really a time of truth and looking at our shadow aspects of ourself in the world, and to use that to generate change. Okay, I mean significant change. So I know that I personally, all these influences affect all of us, and even though I know they're coming, or I know they're happening, it's very palpable. So if you think around May 4th, 4th, 5th, 6th, okay, that's when it went retrograde. It was like somebody pulled the plug. It was, I mean, you might not even want to get out of your pajamas over the weekend, and at least Sunday and Monday. So, so as these things grind to a halt and then begin the retrograde status of going the other way, it feels like nothing's happening, or nothing's going on. And so that's what I kind of wanted to alert you to. So when you guys, all these podcasts that I'm doing, or anytime you're in a session with me, or any of the classes that I have, are really to empower you with tools of spiritual understanding, so that you don't rely on waiting for me to tell you when things are happening, or someone else. Okay. So these planets go retrograde all the time. Okay. And so if you if you really want to follow someone that's very comprehensive about astrology, I would recommend going to astrologyking.com, which is Jamie Partridge. And he is an excellent astrologer. And he really gives you the bare bones of what you need to know when planets go retrograde, when the full and new moons are happening, what the significance is astrologically for that, the signs that it's affecting and happening in. And so I'm not an astrologer, but astrology is a wonderful tool for self-awareness and to understand how these planetary influences affect us as humans down here in this journey. So, over the last 10 years, we've had a lot of awakenings, a lot of awakenings. And as I talk about all the time. Awakening is like waking up. It's like somebody turned the light on and you're sleeping. And so initially it's hard to get your bearings, okay? They just, it's like somebody turned on the light in the middle of you being asleep, and you're like, oh my God, like what's going on? Where am I? And then, there's processes that go along with that, and most of which is accepting whatever truth is being revealed in that awakening. And sometimes at first it seems like everything's a mess. Everything's on fire. Everything's just a shit show. And, part of awakening is also accountability and ownership, and saying, okay, this didn't just happen today. This has actually been going on a long time. Now it's just reached a pinnacle or a point where it's unavoidable, where we can't ignore it anymore. And, and once that light's on, it's really, really hard to go back to sleep. So what do? We take our tools out, and all these tools are processes. They're all programs and ways for you to navigate through change and truth, to accept a new normal, to grow and evolve, and hopefully be inspired by it. It shouldn't be something that we fear, okay? Fear is limiting, it's crippling, it stops us from doing things proactively. And again, if you guys want more information about some of these podcasts that I've done and the topics I've done, just go to my YouTube channel, which is Marianne Goldweber. Just, search me in there, and my channel, and subscribe. So every one of these videos I upload to YouTube so that you can go back and look at all the different topics and the things that I've talked about. And that way you can, you can just educate yourself about these things. I'm very pragmatic, basic spiritualist. Okay. So it's very simple. It's how do we take these spiritual concepts and apply them in our everyday life? Okay. So I'm here to educate you on how the universe works, who's on the other side, how that operates. What does that mean for us in this human reality as we're navigating this life that we've chosen as a spiritual being in this human experience? So I'm very basic, spirituality 101. And it just gives people a foundation so that they can go in search of whatever else would be part of your spiritual practice. So I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just telling you what I know based on the things that I've experienced as a medium and clairvoyant and all those things. And coming from that compassionate place, because, again, I had an awakening, and we're constantly awakening, honestly. So we're always awakening to new truths as we're becoming, as we're evolving. And, the older you get, it changes. So these tools will serve you for the rest of your life. And that's why I teach about symbolism, and I teach, offering you some of the tools that I have. So if you want some clarity, I do one-on-one sessions. I can do them virtually or in person, whichever you prefer. I also do coaching, which is really, really great, because we do a block of 3 sessions, depending on where you're at and what you're looking for. And we book them either monthly or weekly. And then I privately give you the tools and show you how to use them. And then you go home and work on that. And then we come back and we talk about it. And then we give you a new tool. And so coaching is wonderful. And, so I would recommend, this is a great investment in yourself, because when you have this understanding, we don't take as much of this human stuff going on personally, but it helps us also unwind the things that we've created and rewind it in a simpler and better way, to generate, new things, to manifest new things in our life, more abundant living, and not just monetarily, but, anything that we construe as abundant. To me, love and having time and opportunities, for me, that reveals abundance for me. So again, we're all scrutinizing ourselves right now, and it's not only affecting just each of us, it's affecting our world. Our world is in a process of a great awakening. And as people are awakening to these truths, it's very difficult, okay? But when we have faith and we have this understanding, and these tools, and things go smoother, okay? So we don't we don't operate from a place of fear. We're operating from a place of peace and solidarity and coming together. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. So the topic tonight is God moments. So as we're navigating through this human life, we have this invisible stage crew, is what I call it. So think of it like we're taking a role in a play, and we have this stage crew that is comprised of our ancestors, who you may not know, your relatives that you do know, friends, and then there's spirit on the other side that are guides, as well as our animal messengers are there as well. There's lots of things. There's angelic things, there's earth spirits, there's all kinds of things that are operating in the in-between humans and that universal divinity. So those things are helping while we're out here in the experience to guide us to the right things, okay? But it can't get through your fear and your emotion and your ego and your willfulness, okay? And that's why sometimes when we have these kind of cataclysmic events that happen to us, it knocks us out of the illusion of what we thought our life was. And it's not doing it to hurt you, it's doing it to get you to stop and look at this in a whole different way. The challenge that we're facing is that a lot of religious dogmatic systems haven't always given us autonomy or self-reliance when it comes to having a relationship with our divinity, the God of our understanding. So it's fun. I love when I can see it happening in the human physical world. Some people call it paranormal activity, which are just interesting words. But the universe is always trying to get us some kind of a physical sign quite often. And if we're still and present enough to kind of notice what's going on around us, and this is part of the challenge. So that's part of the challenge, being still. So it came up in my memories today on Facebook. So as we're on our routines, we're getting up, we're getting dressed, we're going to work, we're taking people here and there, we've got errands, we've got, meetings, we've got all kinds of things. And quite often we're so focused on that next thing or, getting to those things that we're not always slowing down enough to really be present with the kind of subliminal thing that's going on around us. And so we pack our schedule so full and we keep ourselves so distracted that we're getting from here to there, but we don't even know how the hell we got there, okay? And so if that happens to you and you've got your schedule so packed that we're literally scrambling for the next thing, maybe it's time to kind of reevaluate what we have ourselves committed to and how much. We can't serve from an empty cup. This is why some of these classes and some of these workshops help you have enough energy to really be objective, to be full, to be rested, to be inspired so that you're responding and not reacting to, especially everybody's got a need. Everybody wants, but they're not necessarily conscious of how they're affecting other people. And it's not malicious most of the time, okay? It's just subconscious. They don't even realize they're doing it. And so when you can remain objective, it's easier to set boundaries. It's easier to speak truth. It's easier to say no to things that, even though people, have a demand, doesn't mean we have to comply, okay? And so when we can take that space to stop and be able to assess, can I do this? Do I have time for this? Can we give them a tool or some way for them to get there themselves? So that's what happens in that stillness and that moment of stopping, so then we can assess things in a much more proactive and not reactive way. Because, there's that old funny saying, an emergency on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Poor planning. And I've done it, okay? I've burned the candle at both ends. I've overcommitted myself. because I don't want to disappoint people or whatever. And, and then you come back realizing you disappointed not only other people, but yourself because you couldn't follow through. And so if that's happening to you, we need to maybe have a calendar, and start really looking at and scheduling time for ourselves or time between things. So I don't do like back-to-back appointments. There's some grace that I put in between clients, to give myself ample time to regroup before the next thing. And so this Pluto retrograde is kind of forcing our lesser behaviors and habits into the light to see that, well, maybe we are part of the problem. Maybe the things I've done or the things I've chosen have not been to my highest and best. And so it's a time of reflection and looking at how we got here. How did we get here? Okay. And that's not an easy day, guys. Okay. And it's not one day, it's a process. And sometimes as we're having these awakenings, we have to look back over, a lifetime of things. And so this is why the coaching is really powerful, because it gives you the tools so that you can go back and reflect and heal some of the things that we have done or have been done in our lives up until now, So that's really the topic. So let's talk about God moments. So the little picture that came up on Facebook today of the little balloon in the alley, okay? Oh, so anyway, you're walking along and you're in the hustle and bustle and you're in the concrete jungle and you're just trying to hoof your way to where you got to go. The universe is trying to get your attention and slow you down sometimes, just to get you kind of notice stuff. So this is why I do not react to traffic jams or some of these other things, because sometimes the universe uses those kinds of things to slow you down and get you to be more present, to other things that might be going on around you. So in the hustle and bustle in the concrete jungle, getting to where you got to go, there's this little balloon that just is being taken by the wind and bopping along down this disgusting, dirty alley by a parking garage, and it starts kind of almost following along. And so you kind of have to stop. And the fun part was it was a smiley face balloon. Okay. It's very colorful. It was bright yellow amidst the gray and the, muted colors of the alleyway. And it was just, it stood out. So that's kind of what they do, is they bring things into your perspective that are sometimes out of context. Okay. That get your attention. Okay. Well, in that dreary, weird alleyway, there's this cute little smiley face balloon just kind of bopping along, being taken by the wind. And you got to laugh, because that's really a powerful message if you can, kind of look at the symbolism of it. So it's a smiley face balloon. It's happy. It's a balloon. It's something that you get, that kids enjoy, having a balloon. Some poor kid probably lost the damn thing. But, and it's in this place where you wouldn't expect it, that in this concrete jungle place, as people are rushing to and fro, here's this beautiful little thing just kind of bopping along. And so you have to stop and ask yourself, in spite of where I am, in spite of all these things, we need to be that little balloon. We need to be joyful. We need to be able to find joy in places that, don't necessarily have that. So it was just a great reminder. And so when we look at that, that's a fun message. Okay. I can't lie. That's pretty fun. So again, sometimes these things that come into your perception. So this is why I teach symbolism, because when you understand some of the symbolism that the universe uses, they tap into what you might recognize. So for instance, the reason a lot of people see cardinals and birds and things like that is because they've been taught or told that birds are messengers and that they are trying to be, they're being influenced by people that on the other side. Okay. That's true, but all animals are messengers. So, you know that symbolism. So they're like, what would Marianne understand? Oh, we'll send a cardinal or we'll send a crow. Now I have to tell you, I have a relationship in my symbolism with crow. And crow is about bringing messages out of the void because they're black. It's about bringing a message is coming from the void and to pay attention. So when they go, bah, 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 okay, that's pay attention, listen. And usually what I do is I stop and think about what I'm thinking about. So they're saying, pay attention to what's popping in your head. Pay attention to that, thought process. And it's to remind me that there's, that what I'm receiving telepathically in that thinking, okay, isn't always just my thinking. It's the universe giving me ideas. So the crow is to remind me to stop and to listen to my inner knowing, okay? So I have a fun story about that. So during a very tumultuous time in my life, because I understand the animal symbolism, it was like Jack Hanna's Wild Kingdom, okay? There were animals that should not be where they were supposed to be showing up. So I talked about this in my last video about crows. So one day, I was on my way to my retail store. I had an herb and tea store in Rocky River called Away with Herbs. And I had Jared with me, and he was little. And I felt like I had to hurry up and get there. Okay? And this was just this inner knowing. And so I pull into my parking lot, and there are like hundreds of crows. And I'm not talking about little blackbirds. I'm talking about full-size crows, and there had to have been 100 of them in my parking lot. And Jared's like, Mommy, you're not going to hit them, are you? I said, no, but as I was trying to pull in the parking lot, they were kind of scooching away so that I could park my car. And it was really funny because that day, the minute I got into they're like, pay attention. I'm like, and again, there was a lot going on in my life, so those crows meant more than one message. But that day, Jared and I get inside the store, and I hear a knock at the door, and I open the door, and it's the health guy that comes to inspect. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I couldn't be late. This is why I had to be on time, because this was good. And the crows are like, bah, 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 and I was, you're ready for them. They come random out of nowhere. So you just know that. So anyway, so they were trying to give me a heads up. The crows were trying to give me a heads up. Oh, by the way, make sure you got your shit together, Marianne, because your friend from the health department's coming today. So again, when we understand the symbolism, and so this is why the more tools and understanding you have of symbolism, the better it is. Well, because we're out in nature quite often, knowing the symbolism of animals is really helpful, okay? Because when we're in nature, you'll see things that are wildlife. So there's a phenomenon that happens that sometimes when we understand the symbolism, the universe will start putting it into objects rather than an animal, because we don't have lions here, or we don't have cougars in Ohio. But there were times where I would be, driving along, going about my day, and I would see a log that looked like an alligator. Okay, so that's a message. And then I would be driving along and I would see a leaf maybe that looks like a mouse. Okay, so these are ways that the universe is taking, okay, Marianne understands the animal symbolism. So we're going to start putting it in inanimate objects in order to, get her the message. So it's not just the physical animal. I also dream about animals as well. So because part of the symbolism that I learned and understand is the meaning and messages of nature, the wind, the trees, plants, animals. That's how a lot of my messages come to me, is through that symbolism. So I wanted to turn you guys on to a couple of things. If you go to my website, mariannegoldweber.com/products, okay, I've got some links to some of the spiritual resources that I use that I highly recommend for anybody, because then you're not wondering what the hell that means. So one of my absolute favorite tools is something I came upon early in my process. And because there wasn't a lot of people to rely on for some of the stuff that was happening in my world. And so I needed to engage with something that was going to help me through this as I was working through it. And it's a very long, it'll make a great made-for-TV movie. But anyway, so one of the tools that I use is by Jamie Sams. And Jamie Sams, it was an indigenous teacher who wrote a number of amazing books, especially on the divine feminine. But two of the books that I use, okay, that came to me during this time was, the first one was called Medicine Cards, okay, and the other one is called Sacred Path. And these books are all about the symbolism, indigenous symbolism, and what it means, okay? Now, it's all the animals that are native to this country, okay, but some of these animals I do not have in Ohio. But each chapter tells you the entire story about what that animal represents in that spiritual context. And it also tells you the coyote, of course I opened a coyote, okay, my favorite. But it also tells you the contrary aspect, or what it might mean if it's reversed. So it comes with a deck of cards. And so these are not tarot, these are oracle. Okay, so an oracle is something that you consult. Okay, so what it does is they're like, okay, Marianne's paying attention to the animals. And so when you shuffle the cards and you pull a card, it's going to give you the animal. Okay, so in this case, it's upside down. Okay, and it's owl. Okay. So once you understand the concept of what this means, you're going to see when you reflect on the story where this is applying in your life today. Okay, so frankly, I start every morning with these, and I sit in meditation or in stillness, and I reflect on my day, how my day went yesterday, how did that work, and then I pulled cards, these two cards. Now, I channel for myself as well, so I communicate with my guides, with myself, for myself, as well. But because I know the rules, it's not always something that I need to do on regularly, but the cards give you a spiritual focus for the day that your subconscious actually remembers. And so, so again, if you decide to purchase these are on my website. You just go through the Amazon link, and it's already set up for you to check them out. The other book is Sacred Path. Now, the cool thing about this is all the indigenous, not all, but some of the indigenous wisdom as it comes to the directions, some of their wisdoms. And each one of those cards brings you an entire chapter of what that means in that culture. And it will give you a basis of understanding about how to build that relationship with through spiritual accountability. And it's bringing a message with every card that you pull. So no matter how many times you pull it, there's always something new to hear, new to learn, because we're constantly evolving and fine-tuning. And so these are wonderful tools. So I always joke that when I had my awakening, all I really had was 2 books and a dead Indian, my indigenous guide. But these books and that saved my life. Okay, because I thought I was losing it, as we are when we're in the midst of all this destruction in our life or in the world. It feels like there's no purpose, it lacks understanding. And, these 2 books offered me wisdoms that humans at that time could not. And so I'm so grateful to Jamie Sams. I always wanted to meet her. We also use her book, The 13 Original Clan Mothers, for our Moon Lodge. We just celebrated our 21st year with our Moon Lodge, which is our Divine Feminine Circle. And then for a supplement, okay, now that you understand this, and we're getting that, that's a God moment, those animals and those or whatever are happening. Once you understand the symbolism, it starts to happen more frequently. So the other book that I would highly recommend, and you can see how dog-eared and worn this one is, it's called Animal Speak, by Ted Andrews. And Ted Andrews is on the Blue Road as well now. But this is an encyclopedia of nature-based animal messages and what it means. Now, Ted actually put it into a place where he talks about all different cultures in this. So he talks about what it meant to the Egyptians, what it meant to different cultures, okay, and what the aspects of that animal represent in the messages that it's bringing. And so it's a wonderful, it is encyclopedic, okay, but it not only covers animals, it also breaks it out in detail. It covers all kinds of animals, in addition to insects. Okay, it has insects in there. It has lizards, and it has insects, lizards, and birds, all different kinds of birds and animals. And so it's an amazing comprehensive. So I would highly recommend you get these 3 books: Medicine Cards, Sacred Path, and Animal Speaks. So the more you understand the symbolism, the more the universe has to create those God moments for you, okay? And so even plants and trees and all of these things also have messages contained with them as well. But so let's talk a little bit about some of those, God moments. So one day I was driving down Kinsman, okay, and there was a lot of construction and destruction going on in the neighborhood at the time, and I used to take that drive 4 times a day down. We used to call it the Kinsman Autobahn, and I was just reflecting while I was sitting at a traffic light. I said, kind of all this destruction, and they're trying to do construction, but everything moves so slow, and it's so hard to live there. I can't even imagine what it's like to actually live amidst all this. And it was interesting because when I looked over to my right, in the middle of this, buildings coming down and construction going on, there was this little flower that was coming up in the crack of the sidewalk, and it was bright blue. It was like a cornflower. And it was coming up, standing up straight as an arrow in the middle of this, again, destruction, gray. There was no real color. And this little flower found a way, and so it answered my question. It's because I reflected on, wow, how do we survive these things? How do we live in the midst of destruction? And that little flower reminded me that those seeds find a way. That life finds a way to survive and thrive amidst all this. It was such a beautiful message, So when we can slow down and take the time to really think about our thoughts are a prayer. Our thoughts are saying, wow, universe, what do you think about that? And they respond. But, we're not always listening in our inner knowing. Sometimes they have to show it to you outside yourself. Those are really cool moments. Sometimes the universe uses people to deliver a message. So you might be reflecting on something or having something going on, and you meet some random stranger. And frankly, guys, I don't think some of these people are random. They're being used to deliver a message, or they're angelic. I've met beings that were not human. And in hindsight, I realized that they were really divine messengers that showed up just at the right time. And again, once you understand that the universe is hard at work behind the scenes, trying to inspire us, trying to keep us on the road, trying to get us to awaken and make changes, those messages get more intense. At first, it's like it's everywhere. Okay. And as you start to get the message and you start to make those changes, the messengers change, the frequency changes, and it doesn't happen as often because now you're on the road and you're doing what you need to do. So that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight. So there's all kinds of tools and things that can help us. They're not going to give you the answers, okay, but they are going to give you what you need, what you need to hear today. That's going to allow you to choose. We have free will, and we can choose lesser or we can choose greater. And each road takes us to another experience. You choose lesser, well, then you're going to get the lessons associated with that until we get it. and we change. And we change the way we think. We change what we do. You choose greater and do the right thing and stand in integrity and start doing those things. And then new things, new people, and new situations just begin to appear. So look for the God moments. I put that out on the on Facebook today. Did you guys have any God moments? Did you have any of these little things that just showed up? And like I said, sometimes we're working harder, not smarter. We've got our schedules and our day and everything so packed that we haven't really set boundaries with ourselves and overcommit and underserve because we're doing too much. And sometimes we're not really helping other people. We're sometimes interfering or enabling them to do it on their own and to trust themselves. So that's a whole nother convo for another evening. So Pluto's retrograde. And so this is an excellent time to really reflect on our shadow self. The things that stop me from being my best version are never gone, guys, because, I was conditioned for a very long time, as we all were. And there's a lot of truths that are being revealed for quite a few people who have not known that these things were happening. And so there's a lot of upheaval happening. But again, there's always destruction before construction. We can't create new and better things until we've learned about the things that are being taken away. What did we learn from that? Who taught us that? And what can I do to be stepping forward and doing the next right thing and leaving it better than I found it, So not just thinking about ourselves, but how we're affecting other people, So this is a great time to investigate your shadow side. So we've got our higher spiritual side and we've got our lower human side. And again, quite often I didn't want to change. I didn't want to recognize that I was the problem, that I was creating quite a bit of the stuff that was going on in my reality. And I was inviting the wrong people, and so it's a lot to unpack. And this is why we have systems and programs, whether it's a physical system of wellness, whether it's an emotional system to help us through this process of wellness, and a spiritual program that helps us tie them all together, get us in alignment. So you're never too old to learn. But once you start noticing the symbolism and the way the universe communicates, you can't unsee that, okay? They'll be sending crows to your door. Another funny one was, I was feeling very scattered one day. And I was just having a hell of a time getting order because I had everything. It was bad. Okay, I had a lot going on and my house was a mess. It was filled with inventory and I had just made this big move. And so this little squirrel kept coming to my door. Okay, but this day he showed up and he was at my glass. I had a full-length glass door and he's out there like, hey. He's looking in at me and I'm like, oh my God, now they're coming to the damn door. And I said, okay, brother squirrel, what are you trying to tell me? And then off he goes. He goes out, like somebody shot at him. He ran out in the yard and he was running around like a maniac. And then he headed up a tree. Okay. And I'm like, oh my God, that is me. I am the squirrel. Okay. Running without focus, just running all over the place. And so that was but he actually knocked at my window. Okay, so he's like, watch me, watch what I'm doing. And so when I sat with that, I go, oh my God, I am the squirrel. Okay, I'm running without focus. So that was the message. Get focused. Make a list. Check it off. One thing at a time. One thing to completion. And so, Brother Squirrel showed up to share that message with me. And I had to laugh because, again, if a human being had come to my door and said, Marianne, you need to get focused. Okay, I would have told them to, and so they send the animal messengers quite often because, it's amazing. Okay, it's amazing. So yes, but if you think about squirrel in the proper aspect, they know when to work, they know when to play, they store things for the winter. So once you understand the symbolism of that and the diverse meanings of each animal, you will then be able to say, okay, am I running without focus or I'm not buttoned up. Okay. I'm not I don't have a to-do list. I'm not checking off the boxes. Where could I be more like squirrel and be prepared, prepared for what's to come, and take time to play and have fun too. It can't just be all work and no play. So little squirrel reminded me that I'm taking myself too serious, that I'm not focused, and to make time for just, running without focus. So anyway, so that's what I want to talk about tonight. So yeah, let's see who's here. And I'm going to do a couple random channelings real quick. I'm going to channel for you guys. Hi, Sue and Cynthia. Hey, Lisa, Shannon. Hey, Arlene. Oh, sorry guys, this thing doesn't scroll right when I'm on Facebook. So anyway, if you're here, just let me know that you are interested by making a comment. Hold on a second. So Lisa, this message is for you. Your dad's here and he's waving at you. And he's saying thank you for the party. Thank you for a party. So I don't know what context that's in. But sometimes, like if we have a party, a memorial party, or we have a rite of passage, funeral or a celebration of life, he just wants to thank you for the party. But unless you had a party specifically recently where it was, in memorial of him, but he just wants to know thanks for the party. So he's waving at you. He's fine. Guys, nothing is, when you get to the other side, okay, it's so much easier to awaken while we're here, to our human ignorance, okay? But if you go through your life in denial about things and thinking you're right about it all, okay, when you get to the other side, that's where you have to unpack it, okay? It is so much easier to unpack our life while we're still here, because now we can do something about it. We can make amends. We can tell people, things. But once you're on the other side, you're stripped of this human ego and illusion, you're like, oh my God, I did that. I could have had a V8, and so now nobody can hear you, and it's just so much easier. But anyway, he just wants you to know that he's really seen the light, okay? And he's learned a lot since he's been there. So that's why, guys, our helpers and guides from the other side are evolved now. They're more and better than the people you remember them to be, because they've done this process. And now they're coming just to help you. And so it's not for their own selfish need. They're doing it because they now can see what you need. And it may have been very contrary to who they were when they were human. And so they might have been a bumbling, goofball here. But now they're on the other side going, oh my God, I was such a bumbling goofball. And they really get to see this lifetime and how they affected it, and then who they are as a complete soul. So, they're so much better than we remember them to be. And now they're completely and utterly unconditionally serving us. But we're the problem. We're in the way. Our resistance to the next right thing sometimes is the block in the road, and they can't do that. So anyway, he's waving at you. Hey, Shannon. Aw. Your mom-in-law's here. She just wants to thank you for everything. And tell the kids I'm so proud of them. Tell the kids I'm so proud of them. They're such brainiacs. She's so proud of them because, learning and knowledge was so important to her, and she just sees them thriving. And so she just wants to tell you, great job, and she's so proud of them. Oh, guys, we can be so willful. Hey, Deanna, your grandma's waving at you. Karen Hannah's here, and she just wants to say thank you as well. And about taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself. Okay? Guys, none of us nurture ourselves properly, physically, emotionally, or otherwise, okay? And sometimes we treat ourselves like a wicked stepchild, and, we neglect ourselves. And I'm not saying this is what Karen's doing. I'm just saying from my own lived experience, okay? And so, again, we haven't had great examples of how to nurture and take care of ourselves. I was thinking about how I was putting myself to bed one night, and I was thinking, God, it's like putting a bad kid to bed. I wind it up, and then I expect it to go to sleep. That's not loving. That's not nurturing. And so, how do I prepare myself better for sleep? Again, I take my salt shower, and, I make my room cozy, and, doing all those things. So that's a loving act to ourself. This is why I always say making our bed in the morning. When I'm making my bed, I know this sounds weird, but the energy I put into making my bed is that I'm going to go out and have a great day. I'm getting out of the bed, and I'm going to make it beautiful so that when I come home tonight, I have this lovely bedroom clean and ready for me to go to sleep. So it's like a gift you're giving yourself later. So this is what we call mindfulness. Now, there are decks of cards that you can pull every day just to give you ideas about how to be mindful, and thinking about those things. One of my favorite mindfulness teachers was Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a Vietnamese monk, and if you go onto YouTube, there's millions of videos. He actually was, he had his own ashram in France that was called Plum Village, and that's where he lived. And he would have classes there, and he would have workshops there. And he just passed away over the last few years, and I loved him. He's so sweet and so cute, and his little mindfulness messages were amazing. But I had a deck of cards by Thich Nhat Hanh that talked about mindfulness. I have, if you go on to, once you're in, wherever you purchase things, you can look up mindfulness meditation cards, and it'll give you one thing every morning to focus on, like brushing your teeth or making your bed or making food for yourself. When we're doing those things, we're actually putting and infusing energy into those things. So that's kind of where we're at. So trust the God moments. Nothing is by accident. Those things are happening, but we've got to kind of start being more aware of it. And once you understand some of the symbolism, the universe takes things and it uses that. So the more you know and understand about symbolism, the easier it is for them to get a hold of you. So there's more than just cardinals as messages, guys. Okay, cardinals are wonderful, and they're like, well, she's noticing cardinals. Yeah, but it's also our state bird. And there's lots of other messages and messengers as well. So, yeah, not every cardinal you see is somebody trying to get a hold of you from the other side. But cardinals, or birds in general, are all about seeing things from a higher perspective. Okay, they're always about getting us, they walk on the earth and they fly. They can rise above some of these things. So sometimes the message about cardinals or birds is about seeing things from take a step up, and let's disengage from the energy and look at this from a higher spiritual perspective, and that's the message that birds provide. So, but each one is different, and they all have a different meaning. So, like I said, Ted Andrews, Animals Speak, and Medicine Cards and Sacred Path by Jamie Sams. And that'll give you your own spiritual understanding and tools to start recognizing these God moments in our world. So, there's still dates available for you guys to have your own private event here at a village. And I would highly recommend, especially during this time of our world, that when you have this spiritual understanding that everything that's happening is important. This is a marathon, not a race, guys, okay? And there are good things happening behind the scenes. And there are things that you and I can do to help. But projecting fear or giving hateful things a platform feeds it. Okay, stop doing that. Okay, we've got to focus on the good and the people that are doing the right thing. And what are you doing? What are you and I doing? What can we do to bring people in the world together? So it takes a village. It really does. So anyway, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a lovely, wonderful evening. And if there's anything else you need, just dial my digits, 216-324-2657, or go to my website, MaryAnnGoldWeber.com. Thanks so much. I hope you guys have a fabulous evening. Keep the peace and pray for our world.